Hey, listening to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM 89.0, ArrowFM, and MPR. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype, we got Josh.
Hey.
The shows this week were a little bit different. We are leading into the brand warfare of Survivor Series with Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. And thanks to a situation that happened outside of the shows themselves, a number of the SmackDown stars were held up, and that meant that NXT were able to reign supreme over top of the Blue brand, and really put on quite a good show for what was sort of last minute jig-arounds for people.
Yeah, definitely created an interesting scenario. Though who knows if that wasn't actually going to still be the plan, even if SmackDown had been at full strength.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. From the outside, it looks like it was a bit of a rush together plan, but as you say, entirely could have been the way. Survivor Series is coming up. This sort of NXT coming in and, treat us seriously needed to happen sooner or later, so it might have been brought a week forward, or as you say, could have been the plan the entire way through.
Yeah, because even if the mechanical issues hadn't happened, you're still looking at superstars that have just gotten off a plane that had been on a plane for like 16 hours. So they're going to have jet lag, and that's going to weaken them. So that would be the excuse for the yellow brand going over on top of that.
Yeah.
On top of the blue brand if it was at full strength. Because technically they wouldn't be.
That's true. NXT, though, coming up onto SmackDown, maybe it wouldn't have gone exactly this way, because NXT got a entire full sweep in the 3 matches they were involved in. Tommaso Ciampa defeating The Miz in a pretty good match between the two of them.
And there was a good promo beforehand, too, that really got Tommaso Ciampa over. And just reminds you that The Miz is arguably the second best on the mic in the entire company.
Yeah, people keep sleeping on The Miz despite all he's done. And it's insane to me. Like, this dude's really good. And then we also had a women's tag team match, Fire and Desire, ultimately losing to the team of Rhea Ripley and Tegan Nox.
And chaos was abound, as not only was them there, but then we got something to do with our women's champions involved.
Yeah, Shayna Baszler sticking her nose in quite a few places, both on SmackDown and on Raw, sort of making her presence known. And I believe...
Yeah, and Shayna's appearance also marked the end of English's night. Whether that was coincidental or not, after he accidentally called her the Queen of Hearts, that's Natalia, my friend, he got replaced by Pat McAfee.
Well, we'll just wait for the Queen of Diamonds and the Queen of Clubs to show up. We might already have a Queen of Clubs.
We'll have a Royal Flush sale.
My God, it's a long play. But this match also of note, quite depressingly to me, Dakota Kai absent from the team-up that you would typically expect with Tegan Nox. A little bit of an explanation over on NXT. Things are deepening for my girl on NXT. Dakota Kai did lose to Shayna Baszler, and that meant that Rhea Ripley singled her out as a weak link and chose her to not be on Ripley's War Games team. Little sad moment.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe she'll be going to the dark side. as a result.
Entirely possible. I have hope that because this was an on-air storyline, that she's not on the team, and not just randomly chosen that way, that it will lead to something. Fingers crossed. because Shayna Baszler's team is still missing a member. Could be anyone. Probably
It definitely could be anyone.
Could be Ronda Rousey. Throwback to last week. Never know. Mm-hmm. But with SmackDown, probably the single biggest surprise and shining moment on SmackDown, Adam Cole, the NXT champion, defeats Daniel Bryan 1-on-1, 1-2-3, middle of the mat.
Only because his title was on the line, they couldn't afford to change the title.
Yeah, they could have made it not for the title though. They let it happen that way. And these two put on a banger.
Yep. Yeah, it was a really, really good match.
These two, I feel like when you were looking at, an NXT invasion could happen, or like once it started feeling it would happen, they're the two you're looking at, you're like, I want to see those two go at it again. Obviously outside of WWE. But I want to see those two. Put them on one-on-one. And you got it, and you got everything that you could have imagined that way.
Yep. And it was interesting. It's the fact that he only got a little bit of help from his partners in crime. Really says that they have high expectations on Adam Cole.
Yeah. Well, it's to me, the Survivor Series build they've done so far, before this week, if you'd asked me last show, I would have said, little weak. They're doing what they're doing. Let's see what they pull out. And after this week, after Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, I'm hype. I want to see Survivor Series.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of triple threats. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's very interesting. When they announced that NXT was going to be involved in Survivor Series, that changed the entire game. Mm-hmm. Because then so many things became open and available. It wasn't just going to be it wasn't going to be like Brock Lesnar versus The Fiend, mm-hmm. like we expected, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah. As you say, triple threats all abound. We're having Shayna Baszler versus Bayley versus Becky, and we've also got the tag teams going at it with the Undisputed Era versus the Revival versus the Viking Raiders. So far announced.
It would not surprise me if the women's tag team championships get defended against a team between Raw, SmackDown. Well, they're the Raw team, so I guess they'd be the Raw representatives. A team on SmackDown, and then a team from NXT.
Yeah.
And then we'll see. We're not quite sure how the main champions will be integrated in, because we've already seen one championship get splintered off. Mm-hmm. So I guess that would be interesting in seeing how they play that out.
Yeah, there's a lot of card to Survivor Series still to be built. And I don't know if this isn't meant to be negative towards any of the brands or any of the guys on it, but I'm really looking at Survivor Series and going, who's this NXT talent going to face? Who's this NXT talent going to face? And that's more what I care about these matches that haven't been announced yet, who's Keith Lee going to go up against? Stuff like that.
Yeah. I could see maybe since they splintered off the WWE Championship, maybe not even doing a top tier championship match. Mm-hmm. Instead doing the mid card championships.
Yep.
So that would be AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura versus Roderick Strong, and then you put Adam Cole leading a Survivor Series team for the NXT. Mm-hmm. And then you have a SmackDown team and a Raw team, and have a triple threat Survivor Series match.
I'm liking it. I'm liking what you just said.
And maybe we'll put the Universal Champion on SmackDown's team. Mm-hmm. Since we can't really figure out where to put him otherwise.
Yeah, there's a fair few options for that sort of stuff. And obviously being the night after War Games, you're going to have all of the dudes there. But to me, as well with this build-up, is that it just hasn't been, Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. There's been battle lines, but they're starting to blur. And on Raw, Triple H goes over to Raw and he tries to remind Seth Rollins of his roots, ask him where his loyalties lay, and potentially attempt to persuade him to come back to the NXT brethren. And over on SmackDown, I think it was Keith Lee and Matt Riddle sort of roughed up Sami Zayn a little bit, potentially hinting towards Sami Zayn also going that way. So there could be some shiftings, or I feel like there's going to be one major person turning on their team at some point during Survivor Series.
Yeah, there's definitely some, way up in the air kind of things now. We don't really know anything now that NXT's involved.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we thought we could have known, we can't rely on anymore. And that makes this particular pay-per-view that much more special.
Mm-hmm.
Because it gives us almost like a feel of the Royal Rumble. Anything can happen.
Yeah, we've got 2 more weeks of content, 2 Raws, 2 SmackDowns, and then it's Survivor Series, and 2 NXTs. We've got to mention that as well. We will get to some stuff that happened on NXT that ties into this whole Survivor Series build here. So I feel like with only 2 weeks left, it can only get stronger from here. I just see it getting more and more hype as they announce matches. It's not usual that a pay-per-view can be sitting around. They've got 3 matches announced, one of which I think might be a little bit lackluster, but somehow I'm still really hyped for this pay-per-view and might think it's one of the best of the year, without even happening yet. It's just got that level of potential purely from what they've built so far with Raw, SmackDown, and NXT.
Yep, we're full born here, so we'll have to see where they go. But so far, A+ work.
Let's play an entrance theme. And it's going to be the Undisputed Era's entrance theme, because the Adam Cole just put on such a great match. I'm sure that's why, right?
He was definitely the MVP of the week. Not only his match with Daniel Bryan, but his match on Raw with Seth Rollins.
Yeah, which we haven't even got to. There's so much to get to this week. Alright, so we're going to play that theme for you right now.
The system.
And you're back with the Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM 89.0, ArrowFM, and NPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh, and we still have so much to get through with this week. You mentioned Adam Cole versus Seth Rollins, so let's just jump into that one as well. Main event over on Raw.
Also for the NXT Championship, though this one did not end cleanly.
This time Seth Rollins DQ victory on the paper for him.
As great as it was, the NXT invasion was on SmackDown, it almost felt forced on Raw.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely did not have the same feel.
Yeah,
Was that because they had all hands on deck on Raw, and so it made it feel like it was just a copy of the original?
I don't know. I think it was a combination, right? You do mention it felt like a copy of the original. I think SmackDown, a lot of the awesomeness it had to it is you didn't necessarily see it coming, outside of those outside factors. It was like, whoa, NXT's here, oh my god. And then it happens on Raw and you're like, oh yeah, they're here still. And I don't know, I feel like if I could point to SmackDown, I could point to so many cool moments and interactions between it, and then I look at Raw and I can't point out as many of those. And yeah, it also felt like, I guess, on SmackDown, NXT were taking advantage of the weakened SmackDown roster. And as you say, on Raw full force, a little bit harder for that.
That said, we did get an amazing segment between Becky and Shayna that also has seemed to just point out that they're both not paying attention to the SmackDown Women's Champion, which I think is going to be very detrimental to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I seem to remember last year there was a title match in a TLC match that was a triple threat match in which Becky and Charlotte were involved in, and because they were too preoccupied with each other, the third member, Asuka, won the match.
Yeah. It's definitely a trope that we've seen a few times. The old triple threat with two of them that really want to go at it. And as you say, I think we're going to see it. Shayna and Becky is the big build. That's the two.
Yeah, I think we are definitely going to see this down the road. This gives us a little bit of a taste for it. At the same time, it also gives them an out to protect both of them so they don't have to lose to the other in this match.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives them the ability to either put Bayley over because they're too preoccupied with each other. So that would probably mean Bayley would end up pinning Becky, probably to protect Shayna since she's the newbie on the Brock.
Mm-hmm.
Or Bayley's there to take the pinfall.
It will go one way or the other. Bayley will be pinned or do the pinning.
Yeah, but I think it would be such a feather in the cap, especially with her new character, for her to go over in this match.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with how she's definitely felt overshadowed the last few months. That her going over in this match and being the dominant women's champion, quote unquote, would definitely play out probably the best of all situations that they could come up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely behind that. I think that's the way to go. If I look at the other options, I'm like, what is Becky winning doing? Not a whole lot. What is Shayna winning doing? Not a whole lot. What does Bayley winning doing? As you say, it just adds so much to that character and just allows it to take that one extra step forward. And so I feel like the main value you can get out of this match is by having Bayley defeat one of the other two. But it's not just on Raw and SmackDown that we see the invasion. Things tipped on over to the yellow brand. I don't know why they were surprised when the invasion came fighting back. But the OC decided to show up on NXT and show their mean business.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that they're the ones that are taking up the mantle for the main roster. Maybe that might have something to do with them having a fourth member possibly in NXT.
Yeah, we talked a lot about...
Unbeknownst to us at the beginning of this whole thing.
You're just happy because it's leading potentially to where you wanted it to lead. But yeah, we were talking about defections. Well, they could be anywhere. And as you're alluding to, one recent returnee to NXT, Finn Balor, has been signaling that he may still be friends with AJ Styles.
Yeah, the club, I think the club is one of those situations where you can join and be thrown out, but you're still a member.
Would you say it's the club for life? Just
it may very well be.
To the Bullet Club. Yeah, I can definitely see Finn Balor linking back on up with the club. Now, I'm sure it's a whole lot of nothing, but I gotta point out the amount of plain black shirts that people are wearing, because it's getting a little bit obvious now. Seth Rollins, he loves wearing merch. Dude wears a plain black shirt on Raw. Sami Zayn over on SmackDown when he was getting roughed up by the NXT boys, black shirt. The OC when they come out in the opening segment for NXT, Styles and Gallows, both in plain black shirts. It means something. It's a conspiracy. They're all going to turn, every last one of them.
Maybe, but it could just be that because they don't have... because of the other controversy prior to that.
Nah. It's gotta be a conspiracy theory. That's it. I don't accept any other reality. Carl Anderson, he wore branded shirts, so he's not actually going to be in the turn. He's going to go off and do single stuff. It's actually going to be a three-man club. It's going to be Balor, Styles, and Gallows. Actually, that makes less sense. It's going to be Balor and Anderson versus Gallows and AJ. It's going to be two clubs. Given Anderson and Balor were quite founding members.
Yeah. Yeah, and the next thing you know, CM Punk will show up, and he'll be a member of the club.
The best part is I was reading a Reddit thread about the black shirt controversy, and someone did say, "Oh, a bunch of guys from NXT wearing black shirts, and not entirely sure whose side they line up to, and they need a leader or something." And Cult of Personality hits, and out comes CM Punk, and everybody cheers simultaneously around the world. But most likely it is completely innocuous, and has absolutely nothing to do with storylines. Just thought I'd note it. And before, not putting all this NXT stuff to the side, but before we manage to end the show this week, we do have to talk about the championships, the big main world championships. First off, Brock Lesnar, he has his WWE championship, but he tells SmackDown where to shove it.
Yeah, he quit SmackDown, went back to Raw because he wanted to, in his words, kick the ever-living tail out of Rey Mysterio. And I think he may be regretting that at this point.
Yeah, he went over to Raw and proceeded to get the ever-loving HE double hockey sticks beat out of him. Don't overlook the small guy.
Yeah. But you know what? The story was told so well. I think one of the best, when they have their best showings, is when they're doing an overarching story in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And you had him and Heyman come out, cut the promo at the beginning. Then you cut to him several times during the show searching for Rey. And then he comes out to harass the commentators. And our newest commentator, Dio, stands up to him and gets an F5 for his trouble, which was an epic moment. And then out comes Rey with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And that was the great equalizer with the Beast.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately set up the Survivor Series match, Brock Lesnar versus Rey Mysterio for the WWE Championship.
Which is why we're not getting a three-way match with the main championships on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Or the main championships involved.
But will we see a title change at Survivor Series for the WWE Championship?
It's possible they may want to give Rey a major moment. But I think this is probably going to be... there's going to be a moment where you think he's going to win the title.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when his son will get involved and cost him the title.
Yeah.
I gotta give him props. This has been some amazing long-term story building.
Yeah, like you got Rey, you got Dominic, you got Kane, you got Lesnar. Like this stuff's all being interwoven pretty damn well.
Yep, most definitely.
And we also can't overlook the other side of the bracket, where Raw's world champion, that belt that is red, the champion of the universe, ends up swapping hands before SmackDown this week, and luckily, super conveniently for everyone involved, swaps into the hands of a SmackDown superstar, so that each brand still has a world title, and The Fiend is your new Universal Champion.
Yeah, much to the shock of just about everybody.
I didn't see the title change happening, especially after what happened at the last pay-per-view, and I didn't see the title change happening in the location that it did either. So double shock factor for the Fiend winning.
Yeah, because nothing of consequences ever happens there.
Well, it has now, and it now brings up so many questions as to what the Fiend is gonna do going forward, and what his Universal Championship's going to look like, because I got a feeling the red strap might not be around for much longer.
Well, it is for now, because they revealed it, the championship, and so far, all that's been done is just new side plates.
Oh, is that it?
Yep, at this point, because they revealed it during the bump.
Okay,
Or, no, not the bump, the backstage
the FS1
pass show that they do on FS1. and it was still red.
Okay. I still got a feeling it won't stay red. I don't know. Obviously that's the only sort of defining factor for the Universal title and comparing it in the differences to the WWE Championship. But I don't quite know. I feel like maybe there are future changes down the line, even if they're not happening immediately. And is that all that you wanted to talk about? Is there anything left from this week that we have to cover? Because it was a pretty big week.
I can't think of anything.
That's the correct answer, because once again, we are out of time. It's been great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
You visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/WrestlingRadio, Twitter page, twitter.com/WrestlingRadio, and we'll see you next week.